Hey there, this is Perch. One of the questions I got is from a store perspective, how do you pick what to sell outside of comics? So you have your comics, you have your graphic novels, you have that stuff. So what other types of content, what other types of products are you going to sell in your store? What how do you pick? How do you decide what you sell and what you don't? Well, the short answer is, you need to assess your market and what's around you. So several comic stores, they go heavy into games and gaming. Depending on where you're situated, do you have a college or 20s market that will come in and consume that kind of content? Is that a market you have? If it is, then that could be a good way to go. Are you in a more centralized location where you got a lot of tourists or kind of spectators? That's where you want to go for memorabilia. So I'm not going to say the F word Funko here, but um, but do you want to go for more of that type stuff? So I'll give you some examples. In Seattle, there's Golden Age Collectibles. I've talked about in the past. It's a very well known, very strong shop. It's a very healthy shop, and it's situated right in the Pike Place Market, which is a major tourist destination. It's kind of, if you come to Seattle, it's the Space Needle, it's Pike Place Market. That's kind of what they say. In this market is the very first Starbucks. It's the place, if you've ever seen the people throwing fish in commercials. There's like fishermen and they're throwing fish at each other. That's in the Pike Place Market. It's like a farmer's market, but a permanent one. Some really good food you can get there. But you don't go to the restaurants. You go to like the street vendors. You can get some good stuff. But anyway, so that shop, it caters to tourists. Obviously, it's marketed as tourists. It's getting tourists in the stores, in the doors every day. And so they go heavy into signed posters and scripts, and there's tons of Funko. There's mugs. There's like the kind of chintzy items of little toys and badges and kind of parody items, and that's what they go for, and they sell a ton of that. And I think they're clever because basically they have two markets. They've set themselves up as a pop culture kind of hub haven, and you got your comic market that's coming in to buy comics. It's in a very long lasting store. In Seattle, you really had you had Golden Age Collectibles, you had Xanadu as two shops, and Xanadu went out of business. The owner, just had enough and said enough's enough. And so, really, Golden Age Collectibles is the traditional store of the area. And so you've got that healthy comic market, but then you've augmented that with an equal or frankly higher merchandise tourist kind of market where, if the comics aren't selling well for month to month, well, tourists are still going to come to this location and they're going to buy in. So that's the decisions they made a lot of sense. But most comic shops tend to go in one of two directions, and some kind of try both, where you go games or you go pop culture kind of merchandise and junk. I say junk, well, it kind of feels like junk after a while. If you start to buy this stuff, you never sell all of it, and then pretty soon you start to, become like Mister like that shop that I was gonna say Mister Miyagi shop, but the guy in Gremlins, that yeah, that character, his shop where they bought the Mogwai. You start to feel like one of those like crazy shops where you've got just stuff everywhere, and I don't know at what point you give up. You go, I'm never going to sell all this. But that's where eventually you get to if you get down that path. And Pike Place Market, that shop, Golden Age Collectibles, it borders on that all the time. It's like they've got just a lot of stuff. And then a couple of years ago, they went through and they just kind of torched some of it, and it was a good move because that place was starting to become lunacy to walk around in. There are other things, though. I think one thing that is key for comic shops and their survival, they've talked about this in the past, is they've got to start thinking about other things they can sell in the store. And it's something I think about all the time. But it's hard to know where to go because opening up a new market, depending on where your location is, and a lot of comic shops, due to increasing rent and increasing infrastructure costs, are getting pushed into more awkward places. You have a comic shop between like a barber and a Weight Watchers clinic. You have these kind of somewhere in a B strip mall because that's what you can afford. It's funny because the malls are jacking up their prices for rent because they're trying to hang on as malls are becoming less popular. But the comic shop is one of those kinds of stores that would be really good for a mall if the comic shop really went all in on events, because not only is it a big tie to a movie theater if it's nearby, but you get a healthy kid audience. You can start to really promote drawing and art seminars and other things that are going on at the comic shop. It brings an audience into the mall that another Claire's or a Victoria's Secret or something is just they're going to come in to buy their goods, but they don't have that halo effect that a comic shop could have if it did things right. One of the things I'm thinking about a lot, and this is an idea that's taken hold, and I'd love to bring it to market, is basically drawing, is art lessons. So this is a kind of service I think about. I think there's a greater desire for parents in, let's say, more high, more upper middle class communities, and there's a desire for parents to want to give their children more than they're getting in school. We've seen a lot about schools are not doing the job from an education perspective, and if parents want to augment. And so in the past, that was like taking the kids to soccer. You have that cliche, these kind of sport events. But all the kind of the sporting things, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all that stuff seems to be, it's not as popular as it was. There's, for whatever reason, you get the baby boomers who want to do something new and quirky, and they also are big onto nostalgia. And so I think that there's a huge market for basically teaching your kids how to draw. So if you're a comic shop, having your comics there, setting up a couple tables and running kind of after school classes where you get an intern, you get somebody in to kind of teach them how to draw superheroes. Kids are going to be into it because they want to draw superheroes. Parents are going to feel like they're doing something unique, but it's still fundamental to growth. You're teaching kid art. You're teaching that kind of creative skill, gives them something to do. Parents can always drop the kid and then go shopping, around while the kid's getting an art lesson. I think when you think about extra products to sell in your store, I'm starting to think more in that realm, in the service realm, in the area where what can we do that's related to comics, that's kind of fits the whole mold, but is not dependent on another physical good that I've got to store and manage and kind of track. There were comic shops that went all in on Magic the Gathering, and then they go all in on Pogs, and then they go to these kind of collectible things that just don't go anywhere. So that's what I think about, and it's tough though. You've got to really know your market. I'll finish where I started. You've got to know who are the people around you, who are the kind of people you can draw into your store, and what are they looking for? What isn't being served? I think it's important for a comic shop to be creative. You've got to think outside the box, not to use an overused term, but you've got to come up with something new, because the reality is the publishers of comics alone are not going to do it for you. Just shoehorning in games, if you do not have a gaming community around you, is not going to do it for you. Understand, if you're going to bring games into your store, you're probably going to want to do gaming events and gaming nights. So that's going to take extra staff and extra hours, and you got people coming in and they're sitting for a long time playing games, and while that can be nice loyal customers, they're not spending money during that time. So it's you got to kind of hope some of those people are whales in the end. But it's tough. It's tough to know what to buy. It's a tough time in brick and mortar, and there's a lot of people out in the world who want to go out and do things, have experiences. It's not like all these shoppers who used to go to the mall and hang out, and it's not like they went away. Where are they? Are they just at home playing games and watching Netflix? A lot of them are. So how do you get them out of their house and over to your shop? So I go back to, what kind of service do you need to offer them to make up the gap? Anyway, what do you think? What do you buy other than comics at a comic shop? Would love to know. Leave your comments below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification. Please make sure you're still subscribed. People seem to drop off. And most importantly, thanks for listening.